Hello everyone and welcome to another video in this channel. Today we're going to continue with our little monster here and we're going to jump... Whoop, sorry about this. I was recording a couple of other things and I had to move my screen. There we go. So we're going to continue with this little guy right here and we're going to go to one of those things that not a lot of people like, but it's actually one of the most important parts of the whole process, which is retopology. We're going to be retopologizing this guy so that we can get some nice UVs and so that we can create something that looks cool. Now I'm gonna give this thing one more subdivision. I want this thing to be a little bit softer, like that. And yeah, we're pretty much ready to go into Maya and start retopologizing. But there's a couple of things that we need to do, of course. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to Subtool and I'm gonna say Merge Visible. What this will do is it will combine everything into a single subtool. So it doesn't care about subdivision levels, it doesn't care about geometry, it doesn't care about anything. It'll just combine everything into a single piece. And we want to generate basically two different versions of this character. A really nice high poly version that's going to be used for the bakes, but we also want to create one that's optimized for retopology, because for retopology, we don't need to have all of this information. We just need the general silhouette. So to do that, I'm going to go to C plugin. I'm going to go to Decimation Master. I'm going to say pre-process current, which, as the name implies, will process the current subtool or the current object that we have right here. And once we hit decimate, it will reduce the amount of polygons that we have so that it's easier to work when doing the retopology. Throughout the years, I've done retopology in a lot of different softwares. I've done retopology inside of ZBrush, retopology inside of Maya, retopology inside of Blender, retopology with Topogon, even a little bit of 3D code. So there's really no one particular tool that's like, this is the best and you should only do it here. Pretty much all of them will give you a very similar result. The one that you're fastest with, that should be the one that you use. In my case, it's Maya. So what I'm going to do here, now that it's been pre-processed, I'm going to go C plugin. And first of all, I'm going to do a 50% decimation. I'm going to hit decimate current, and it should give me, as you can see, half the amount, which is perfect for bakes. So I'm going to export this into a little Minion folder here. We're going to call this Minion HP, high poly. OBJ is fine, FBX is fine for this, doesn't really matter. And then I'm going to go C plugin, I'm going to hit Control C, and we're going to do a 10% decimation, which, as you can see, goes all the way down to 181K. If you want even better performance, we can go to like a 2% decimation. There we go. Like, this is perfectly fine for retopology. It's a way less geometry, and it's going to make Maya move a lot faster. So I'm going to call this Retopo HP. There we go. Now we jump into Maya. And inside of Maya, we're going to be using I think it's a very cool tool, which is the Retopology tool, which is the Quadro tool. Again, as I mentioned, there are other softwares. For instance, I really like the RetopoFlow plugin inside of Blender. It's a really fast one as well. But for this particular character, I think we can get away with doing a quick Retopology inside of Maya. So yeah, let's just go for it. So let's just wait for this to open. That's one of the things I don't like about Maya. It always takes forever to open. But while this is opening, remember that all of these things that we're covering, the retopology, the texturing, we have courses about this. I've done a lot of courses that are available down here in the description. We have promo codes for Udemy, and we have Skillshare, like a free, I think it's 15 days option. So check. Hey guys, Abraham here. I just want to remind you guys that we upload all of our courses to Skillshare. Skillshare is this amazing site where you can access a ton of different content to learn, improve, and grow as an artist. We have all of our courses available to watch and learn from right now in Skillshare. You can check the description down here, and Skillshare is offering 1 free month trial to their premium membership. With this membership, you're going to be able to access all of our courses and watch and learn all of the amazing things that we cover with all of the softwares. So what are you waiting for? Check Skillshare down here below. There we go. So here in the folder, I got my my elements. I just need the Retopo high poly for now. And here we go. So as you can see, it's 72,000 triangles, which is perfectly fine for, again, for a retopology. It does look very faceted, very fragmented, but it's perfectly fine. Now, first thing I want to do, I want to split this. I'm going to say mesh. We're going to go modeling, mesh, and we're going to say separate. So we get each specific section as a separate option. Of course, these two claws we can combine because they're symmetrical. These two things, I'm actually going to remodel them here inside of Maya because they had like this little interesting curvature, and I think it's going to be a lot easier. We can keep them for now, but we're going to be remodeling. And yeah, let's take a look at the big shape right here. This is going to be our main, our main section, and this is where we want to start working with. So the way retopology works, or the reason why we're doing retopology, is because we eventually want to create UVs and we want to animate this character. So by having proper topology, the animation process is going to be a lot easier. Now, this is not a complicated character to retopologize because everything's pretty much cylinders. We don't need to be like super careful about the eyes or anything. I will be, but we don't need to because it's not as important. And yeah, it's mainly like just rebuilding the mesh so that we have something to work with. So let's start with the eye, which is one of the most important parts. I'm going to select the thing and I'm going to go into live surface. This is now a live surface. So once an object is a live surface, you can no longer select it. It's kind of like goes into like memory. But a lot of the tools that we have here inside of Maya, they will react properly, or they will react with this mesh that it's saved into memory. So one of those tools is this one, which is called the Quadro tool. And the way the Quadro tool works is actually very funny. You just click a couple of times, 4 times, for instance, and if you press Shift inside those 4 points, it will draw a quad right there. So what I want to do here for the eyelid is I want to do an 8-sided eye. So I'm going to start with 1, and then draw 2 more points, Shift, 2, 3, and 4. And we want to create a loop. Eyes need to be looped, same as mouths and other parts of the character, so that when they like, what's the word? Wink? Is that word wink? I think so. So when they wink or when they close the eyes, things like flow in a nice way. So as you can see, I'm creating an 8-sided like donut right here with my geometry, and I get this. Now, one of the things about the like retopology, and this is one of the reasons why people struggle so much with it, is they try to draw everything like one by one when you can save so much time by just being a little bit faster. So in this case, for instance, I'm just gonna literally extrude all of these elements out quite a bit like this. Some of them a little bit more than others, as you can see right there. And once we have this, I can just click Control and add 1 more line, and that will automatically like conform to the option or to the section of the eye, and we won't need to like worry anymore about that. Okay. Now this line right here, this kind of like center line, I'm just gonna keep going, and I'm gonna go all the way to the middle right there. So see how I cover all of this area very quickly? And then if I need to, I'm gonna just press Control, as I'm doing right here, and this will add more lines into our element. So that's one of the best tips I can give you guys for retopology. Don't try to draw like small squares all around. Start with big shapes, big squares, and then if you need more, we just go for more. So for instance here, I'm gonna do 1 right there and 1 right there, and then just keep going. See how big the squares are? Some of you might be like, well, why are you not like going in and out of the crevices right there? The answer is we really don't need it. First of all, I'm going to show you a trick at the end of the retopology process that's going to give us way more detail. And second of all, most of this detail is going to be baked down into a normal map. This is why we do retopology as well. Otherwise, we can just like export this whole thing into Unreal as is. But since we want to bake this down into a normal map, all of this detail that you have here on the high poly is going to be baked down into a texture. And then the softwares are going to create those textures. Here's another trick. Like one of the golden rules about retopology, and by the way, the next premium course I'm working on, it's a lot about retopology and texturing. But one of the golden rules is you should always try to keep a center line. Center lines are really, really handy for performance like reasons, and just for organization reasons as a whole. So as you can see, just go all the way around the top of the character. And even though this is not finished, I'm definitely going to be adding more divisions along the way. It's a lot easier to just add those divisions than to go one by one drawing all of the little squares. Now, as you can see here, the round thing on the main thing, we're probably going to need like 4 options right there. And it's just a matter of, again, just draw this. And now that we have an idea of how we want things to flow, we just keep filling in the gaps. There are faster ways to do this, as I've mentioned previously. For instance, here, we might need a couple of more like geometry. So I'm gonna go up, I'm gonna go down like this. And then this area, it's kind of like a puzzle. We need to find a way. If we need to add 1 more line, I'll add it, that's fine. Later on, if we were in the need to optimize things, we could optimize in other ways as well. There we go. Now let's go to the next line, which is this one right here. And what we're doing here is, again, we're rebuilding, we're reconstructing the way that this topology is it's done. Some of you might ask, well, don't we have like automatic retopology tools that we could use, like C-Remesher? Maya has some new retopology tools that they added not so long ago. And the answer is yes. However, in my personal opinion, nothing beats a good retopology as of now. Maybe later on we'll get some like AI retopology tools that know where we need and how we need the retopology to happen, but so far, nothing. Now, here I'm gonna show you a very nice little trick that we can use to accelerate the process for the pipes here. So this pipe right here, I'm gonna create a cylinder, and I'm gonna make the cylinder an 8-sided cylinder. And I'm gonna add 3 divisions on the height, like this. Then I'm gonna delete the top faces and the bottom faces, like that. And once we have that, I'm gonna scale this down, probably scale it up like that a little bit. I'm gonna try to position it in such a way that it's kind of like holding, as you can see here. It's kind of like hugging the surface. I'm gonna turn off poly surface for a second so that way I can get this closer to where I need it. So it will be roughly about there. And 8 sides should be more than enough for this character. There we go. We make this live again, and now we select this guy. We're gonna go mesh, and we're gonna hit conform. If you've used Blender, conform is very similar to the shrink wrap thing. So I'm just gonna hit apply, and as you can see, the geometry that I had there has just conformed to the main shape of the cylinder in a really fast way. Now we can grab both of these guys, combine them, and go back to Quadro to find the way to merge them together, because we of course want this thing to be connected with this thing. So for instance, those two, very, very simple transition there. Same for this one's right here. We can just go right there, and that's it. These two guys over here will continue towards this side. Here, for instance, we can have a triangle. So we can do a square and then just keep it triangles. Triangles are fine. A lot of people are really scared about triangles, but they're fine. As long as you know where to place them. You don't want to abuse them, because even though they're really handy, they can like destroy, or not destroy, they can modify your topology quite heavily. So for instance here, I like that one right there, right there. If I see that I need one more like topology line, here's a trick. I'm gonna add one more line right there so that we can have enough topology on this side right here. As you can see, I'm not looping all of those guys or anything. Let's go right there. Smooth this out a little bit there. You can smooth with shift, by the way. Let's add one more there, and then a little triangle there, and that's fine. And that, as you can see, will like hold most of it nicely. And here we just add this. See how this flows into the own like the carapace. Now, this like first circles. Oh my god, sorry about that. This first circles are fine, but this one is having a little bit of an issue. You can see how it's like the topology is like, hey, we need more help here. It's not gonna be enough. Well, what we're gonna do here is we're gonna do a trick called looping. And what looping does is, here for instance, I'm gonna add another like triangle. There we go. What looping does is, once we find a like section like this guy that's a little bit rounder than usual, we can add an edge loop similar to what we did on the eye, remember? Like this. And this little section will like push up, as you can see right there. You can smooth this out and see how nice that conforms to the surface, right? It's like that nice little bump right there that will give us a better silhouette for the whole thing. We're doing this very low poly. I'm gonna change that later on. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, if you don't want to do the cylinder thing, you can also do it like the old-fashioned way. This one's gonna be 6-sided, so I'm gonna do, that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just move them around, and then you do 1 and 2. As you can see, that's gonna like hold the surface a little bit better. Just start adding the lines that we need, the elements that we need. So that's now a square again. That's fine. Triangle there. That's fine. Keep pushing up. One of the main questions that you gotta ask yourself whenever you're doing retopology, if you don't know how to handle an area, first of all, ask yourself, is this area gonna deform, or is this gonna be like a solid piece? In this case, pretty much the whole carapace is gonna be a solid piece, right? So that's why I'm not worrying too much about topology here, because we're not gonna be like bending and distorting it a lot. You still need to take other things into account, but as long as you're not distorting it heavily, then you can get away with just keeping your topology all quads, all triangles, flowing in like a usual like believable direction. And again, if you do that, things are gonna just be way better. Let's do 1 and 2 there. Smooth out a little bit there as well. There we go. Now for the inside here, we definitely do need to retopologize the inside. So we're just gonna continue with the border here. There we go. And then we go in. The quad thing here is a camera base. So that's why you see me moving the camera quite a bit. Because I want to make sure that this thing finds the proper points. If you draw more points that you need, just double click here and clear dots. And that's going to clear the dots. This is the tool settings. And here, for instance, we can use, there's another trick here. I'm going to go to W, just select this thing, say mesh, fill hole, grab that hole and say edit mesh poke. That's going to create a pole right there. And that's it's pretty much going to fill it. We could add one more line right there. As you can see, that's going to really help with the overall thing. But again, I'm going to show you a trick at the very end of this retopology process where that's not going to be as necessary. So we just keep going here. Now, if you see that we have way more geometry than we need, for instance, here I can see there's quite a bit, just one triangle there that will reduce the amount of polygons that we have. Or you can press shift to relax things and things are going to start like moving around in a better direction. I'm going to follow this secondary part of the eye. Keep moving this way. Here I can already tell that there's a little bit too much topology. It's not the end of the world, but just might be a little bit too much. We might be able to reuse it, but yeah, it's just a little bit annoying. Let me go here. Actually, let me go into object mode. This guys, I'm going to select these two guys and create a new layer here so that I can hide them. There we go. That way I can focus on this thing. So for instance, the bottom of the eyes, again, just be fast. Just think fast. That's all I need right there. And then we can, of course, add one more line right here. And we can start building the transition into this gums right here. Those little teeth are going to be a little bit annoying because that's extra geometry that we're going to need to add. And that's one of the problems when you have like small geometry like that. Here's where, again, triangles are really handy because these triangles, as you can see right there, can help me build the necessary like loops that we might need to create the topology that we want. Here, I don't want this to go all the way up. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create another triangle right there. This one's not ideal though. Having that many triangles is not ideal. Here's another trick. You can delete one face, insert an edge loop, and then that's going to give you like another little triangle right there. That way we have a little bit more resolution down here without really affecting the upper parts of the character. This is all about edge control and edge flow. I'm not going to have as much time as I would like to on this like small little project to share all of the little secrets with you, but as I mentioned, I'm working on the next course, which is gonna be like heavily talking about topology, like proper animation topology for a character and stuff like that. So if you want to stay tuned, make sure to hit the little bell icon so that you get notified when we release the newest course. There we go. Now all of this, as you can see, I could, if I wanted to, get like more detail out of the bakes. We could follow the shapes of the objects a lot closer, like we can have like topology going inside of each of these crevices. But since this is a Minion for a game, like again, think about like League of Legends and stuff like that, then we really don't need to be as precise. I'm going to be a little bit more careful here on the arms and on the legs because they do involve a couple of extra things that I need to talk about. So let's finish right there. Cool. So let's talk about the arm. The arm, one of the things that we do need to have on the arm is we need to have an edge loop that divides the arm. So for instance, if we have this guy right here, which is fine, then this guy needs to create its own little like circle. And for this one, I think 8 is also a good number. So that's 4 right there. That will be the camera-based thing. See how it's getting a little bit difficult? That will be 5. Oh. Come on, Maya, find it. Maya sometimes a struggle when it doesn't see, there we go. When it doesn't see all of the vertices, it struggles a little bit. That should be 8. Is it 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 9. It's not the end of the world if we have 9. That's fine. So this is the important part. This is the important bit. Where you will bend this thing, we need to have an edge loop. So I know that this thing right here is where it bends. So I'm going to start like bringing the elements forward, but I'm going to stop the edge loop right there, even if it needs to be a little bit like slanted like this. Why? Because that's the edge loop that is going to be bending with the bones and everything. And later on we're going to have an interesting thing right there. Let's add one more right here, and then we can just keep on pushing this like so. This is something that's been done for the past 20 years, where whenever you have an articulation like the one that we're seeing right there, we're gonna add a little bit of an extra lines or extra edge loop, and this is mainly to hold the volume, because something that happens very commonly with animation and rigs is something called the candy wrap effect, where you bend an object and it loses the volume. Like normally, I'm not strong, but normally when you do this, you can see it inflates a little bit here and here. In 3D, that doesn't happen. It actually collapses. So by adding a couple of extra edge loops, like I'm about to do, like 1 and 2, by adding those extra edge loops, that's going to allow us to hold the volume a little bit better once we're done. Now let's keep pushing this. Again, I'm not going to worry too much about like I'm going to try to cover as much area as possible. This, and you might be wondering, why not like do the retopology with the claw on? And the answer mainly is for again, for rigging purposes. Like, I know this is extra geometry that we could save, but I think it's gonna be better if you are having like if you're on a budget with poly count budget, then yeah, you might need to do that. Now here, as you can see, we're gonna do something similar to what we did inside of the little bends on the back. So I'm gonna finish like this, and then grab this edge, say mesh, fill hole, grab that one and say edit mesh, poke. We're never gonna see this one, right? Like this is inside of the claw, so we're not really gonna see it. And there we go. That's what we have. Same thing on the eye, by the way. So let's finish the eye. So we're gonna do the eyelid first. So like the edge of the eyelid, that's gonna be important. As you can see, it's not really like using the eye, so you can bring this in a little bit more. That's where the eyeball is going to be. Actually, let me hide that guy. There we go. Now, here on the inside, we can just start like collapsing this. Eyes are important, so that's why I'm giving these guys a little bit more geometry than I would normally do other parts. Some productions that I've worked for, they don't feel the inside of the eyes. I do like to feel it, to be honest. It depends. So as always, you need to check with your client or your art lead to know whether or not you're doing it properly or the way they're doing it on the pipeline. But there we go. Now for let's go for the back legs first. We're already like at the 23-minute mark. As I've mentioned before, this is one of the things that people don't love doing because it's quite boring. It needs to be done. I remember when I first started, it would take me like 8 hours to retopologize a full character. Nowadays, I can probably do it on like 2 or 3. So this one probably do need a little bit more like edge loops, because as you can see, they're a little bit fatter. So the silhouette is a little bit wider. There we go. Something like that works fine. And then we're going to jump to the articulation. Remember, we mentioned how this thing is going to move. Part of it's going to be on the inside. So on this like section right here. And then the other part is going to be this little claw thingy. That's why we're creating the edge loop, to make sure that we're following it along. There we go. There we go. There we go. Again, center line. If you can have a center line, have it. Like it's going to be super, super handy for a lot of things. So for instance, here, another option, you can press Tab to just extrude an edge loop. It's another quick way to do that. And then we just, especially on areas where like topology gets a little bit complicated. Now here, for instance, I can already tell that we don't need as much topology going forward, because we're not going to be bending these things. They're going to be like solid objects, right? Like they're not going to deform. So having that triangle right there is perfectly fine. And then we just try to push this forward. Like this. That. Always, you don't want to create spirals. So if you have this extra line right here, you want to follow it all the way through. And then on the next one, for instance, on this one, where I can see that triangles are going to be needed, that's where I start adding. Like here, same thing. Like a triangle is going to be way better for me there. A triangle is going to be way better there. Let's clear the dots. And probably like, it kind of looks like this is where the triangle is going to end. And you can decide what to do here. You can have like a point right there. It's not looking great, to be honest. So I'm gonna do one more step right here, one more loop, and then the final point is just gonna be a triangle. This is why I mentioned that having like a razor sharp things tends to be quite tricky. It's this like points where things start looking a little bit weird. There we go. Delete that face and just, there we go. Now, again, I don't want to bore you guys with the whole process. I would love to keep doing the retopology, but it's probably going to take me like 1 more hour to finish the whole thing. And I just want to make sure that you guys understand the process. So I'm going to show you one last thing here before we wrap this video. On the next video, you're going to see the whole retopology done, but I'm pretty much done every single piece that was like important. All of the other ones, the jaw, like the teeth, everything, we're going to be following the exact same process. It's just more time that's going to take us, okay? So the final thing I want to do, first of all, we can delete history. That's going to make things lighter. So I want to show you the difference between a low poly character and a high poly one. So let's say we're done with the retopology. In this case, well, actually, first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that all of the center edges, all of those guys right there, are on the center. So we grab all of the edge loops that go around the character, not on the sides, so not this ones. And we scale them to 0, like that. There we go. So eventually, of course, we're going to mirror this, x negative, and this is what we're going to have. And once we do a mesh display, well, I'm going to show you 3 options here. This is the example. So I'm going to grab the first one. Let's duplicate it. And this will be like a low poly asset that you could have in the game. The first thing you need to do to make your asset look better is to soften the edges. So if I go, this is like in Blender, like a soften edge or something like that. Here we call it, or actually it's called what? Like, I always forget what the name is. But here we're going to say mesh display and it's going to be soften edge. There we go. So this, as you can see, already looks better than this one, even though they are the exact same thing. They just look a little bit softer. And if you map the normal map, which is what we're going to do once we get into texturing, then that, of course, is going to create the effect that we want, where it captures all of the details of our character. However, there's an extra one, and this is the one that I'm going to be using. I'm going to duplicate this guy, just have it right there, because we're going to use this one later. And I'm going to grab the original one. It needs to be sitting on top of this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say mesh, and I'm going to smooth this. When you smooth, you can see that all of the triangles disappear. All of the weird topology disappears, and we get a super, super clean effect. It's definitely a lot higher. You can see that this one is now at 7,000 triangles, which it's actually fine for a character like this. It depends on the game, of course, but like compared to the 2,000 triangles that we have right here, this 7,000 triangles or almost 8,000 triangles is quite a bit. However, here's where the magic happens. If I grab this thing again, and I make a live surface, I can grab this guy, and I can say mesh conform. And look at how nice this looks. Look at how nice we captured the eyes. Look at how nice we captured like even the fibers here. You can see how they're like the details poking out a little bit. Like the circle that we have here, the circle that we have there, the little like, see that like the little folds there on the arms and on the legs. This is why the conform tool is so, so powerful. And you can definitely tell the difference between one and the other. Like this will be like the super low poly version, and this will be like the high poly version. Now, for those of you that are a little bit more aware of how this could eventually also work, this could be like our LOD0 and this could be our LOD1. So when the character is seen from far away, you're seeing this asset, but as you get closer, it changes to this asset right here. So there's a lot of tricks, a lot of information. And again, you can find that down here in all of the courses that we've have for you guys. But this is what we're going to do. We're going to have probably like a 10K, 12K, maybe even a 15K character with this guy in regards to triangles. But you can see how nice this topology is looking. Right now, of course, we don't need this. I'm going to bring this back to 0. I'm going to go to the front view, and I'm going to delete half of this so that I can keep on working on the retopology. But again, eventually, that's the process that we're going to do. We retopologize the whole thing, we conform, and we divide depending on the amount of triangles that we're allowed to have. And once we have that, we're going to be ready for UVs and eventually textures. And then rigging and animation and programming. Should we do all of it? Should we do all the process all the way to Unreal? If we do, let me know in the comments, because I might not be able to do it for this week. And I do want to have our special Christmas week next week. But if you guys want me to, we can just keep going with this. This could be our Christmas gift. We can do like a mini full course where we finish this. Let me know in the comments, and let's see what we can do. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this one, guys. Have a good one, and I'll see you back tomorrow. Bye-bye.